I came across an interesting article that I wanted to share with you people. I mean, the people that want to watch this. Not everyone's going to relate, but this is a topic that I relate to, and I'm going to explain why briefly. Now, a lot of people on YouTube have this misconception about blacks and colors. They like to lump, like the world does, just social programming. They like to lump everyone in the same category. Like, if you're pale skinned, then you're white. But if you're dark skinned, then you're black. They've reduced us down to colors in a crayon box. And I'm just not having it. A lot of people like to claim what they are. Like the British are different than Australians, but they're both with lighter skin complexion. But they're different people, like Greeks and Italians, or Indians and Arabs. They like to claim this instead of being lumped in the same category. So the article reads, natives who are black struggle to gain acceptance from their own tribes. Now, I know exactly what tribe I come from, but a lot of people on YouTube like to throw, that N word around, or you're just a blackie and all sorts of racial slurs, basically. They especially love this N word. But let me read some of this and we'll get into the video. Rodmila Cody grew up in a Navajo world, butchering sheep, raising goats, and speaking dime. Yet, many in her tribe and her family never accepted her. Her material uncle called her a black pig. This is what we mean in the fair and dark complexion, even though we're cut from the same cloth. Neighborhood kids taunted her with names like Zinhi Zinhi Cocoa Puff, a Navajo slur for blacks. Even though Cody was crowned Miss Navajo Nation, she complained she could not represent the country's largest tribe. Cody was born to a Navajo mother and a black father. And if people aren't aware, this is what the depiction of what Native Americans look like and are still like in this country. If you're definitely looking in Southern California, the Mexicans that you're calling Mexicans are actually Native American. It's it's spread wide across the country, but this is the depiction: big cheekbones, and just you know what it is. And these are the women, and this is what they're Native American women. Now, the tribe that my family is from specifically is Cherokee, and this is a photograph of my grandmother. And I tell people, like, well, you're only looking at it through the color spectrum of the side, dude. Because when you're looking at it through my eye, my grandmother is Native American. Like, I'm not talking just like bullshit. I'm talking the real deal. These are the women. This is what it is. And I didn't grow up and embrace that as much as I, should have in my, yeah. But we're embracing it now, and we're just getting into our roots and kind of figuring out where we're at. And I think a lot of people that are of mixed ethnicity, they're mixed native and black, should really start considering not all this African whatever that the world is teaching you that we're come from. I mean, they had me believing that Africans came to this country on boats and they just had them doing slave work. I always say no, like, well, how did these Europeans know to get these Africans? Where did they get the memo that they were half off on a deal, slashing prices? But how did the N word become such a scathing insult? Now, people love to throw this N word around, not in like real life, but just on this YouTube platform. I guess they feel that they have some nuts all of a sudden because they're so far from you. We know, at least in history, I've looked at that the word started off as a descriptor, Negro, with no value attached to it. We know that as early as the 17th century, Negro evolved to nigger as intentionally derogatory and has never been shed that baggage. We're never able to shed that baggage. You know, we've tried turning the ER into an A and in terms of endearment, but it's real. Everyone's using it now. You know, even the Mexicans and whites, and we just hear it all the time. So you would associate the word with someone that would come from a region like that. There is such thing as Niger in Africa. I don't think it came from just the word. That's why they called them that. And all of a sudden it was a derogatory word because I guess they had nothing to call them. And there is a complete difference between the two. Like when people say go back to Africa, that's something that I cannot and just don't understand. Like how can you tell me to go there when my people come from here? You know, these are what Africans look like. I guess this is what they consider black is like, like I don't get it. Like aren't they colored along with all the rest of us? There's a difference in their appearance, how they look. Like an African looks a lot different than an African American. Do you think that they're the descendants? African Americans in this country, a lot of them, and you know what I'm talking about. Do you think that they're the descendants of Africans when you're looking at them? Like this lady, for example. Do you think she comes, when they say black, are they saying African? We're talking about Americans, African Americans. Because I happen to think that most of them are already here. And this is where she gets her blood from. Unless he's an African. But just look at that. You could tell she's mixed, right? And this is a picture of my own mother. Like, so I don't really understand what people are meaning. Oh, you're a nigga. Like, okay, so you're saying that my family line comes from Africa. But it does not. So the word doesn't affect me. It might affect others. And it shouldn't affect you at all because it's just a word. You use it too. You just changed the meaning and one letter in the word. But these are native mixed black, you know, which is in essence pretty much the same thing. Do you get what I'm saying? So when people tell me go back to Africa, no, I tell them, why don't you get off my land? Because this is my land. More depictions of these Native American women. They call them mixed black and stuff, but these are Native American women. Because all the line comes from here. And a famous guitarist, singer of Native American descent, Mickey Free. Now, I looked at Mickey Free and I was like, dude, I didn't know it at first, but I was like, man, this guy looks just like my uncle. Like, he really does. He looks just like my uncle, but I don't have a picture of him to show you. But I do have some snapshots I took of myself. So when I'm looking, and I'm just like, are you guys misinformed or something? I mean, who taught you history? I have to learn history the old-fashioned way. You know, and then I get comments like, look at those cheekbones. And I tell them like, oh yeah, because that's like a Native American thing. I don't even worry about it. So it's like whatever, man. Because when I'm really, I didn't like really think of this stuff when I was younger. And like I say, people should actually think of where they come from and ask your parents. I didn't learn about this until I was about 19 or 20 years old. So I had seen this video entitled African Americans Are Not Native Americans. And this is definitely a response to that. Take care, people.